it's this cost of living crisis that's going to determine how people vote.
Yes, certainly when you look at the most important issues facing the country and the most important issues facing people and their families, the cost of living crisis comes top and by some distance. But of course, when it comes to local elections, things can be slightly different. Some people will vote entirely based on national issues. Other people will vote entirely based on local issues, and most people will fall somewhere in between, combining both to come to a decision.
And Joe, just in terms of this election, because every election is different, this one is a reflection of the results, I think, from 2018, 4 years ago. And the Conservatives, in essence, actually aren't defending that many seats, and so aren't expected maybe to be hit as hard as the polls would suggest.
No, that's right. These wards and councillors that are up for election this time around, the places tend to be in more built-up areas that favour Labour intuitively, but also at the last time these came up to vote, Labour was doing very well in the polls then as well. Theresa May was really suffering. So Labour don't really have that much headroom to go up, and similarly, the Conservatives are probably not going to make massive losses. Yes, in areas of London like Wandsworth, which has been with the Conservatives since 1979, and Barnet, and perhaps even Westminster, they may lose those, though I think Westminster's unlikely. But perhaps they previously would have thought that Sunderland was in their grasp, and that looks out of the question now. But it's difficult to see how the morning after anyone would call for Boris Johnson's resignation, for instance, because he lost the London borough of Barnet. I think that's very unlikely. And so perversely, the poor expectations that people have may actually be failed to be met because of the configuration of the seats, and that may help Boris Johnson's position.
Yeah, really fascinating, isn't it? We heard the Prime Minister attack Keir Starmer yesterday, talking about individual Labour councils and how badly they had been run. How key is all of this? You know, we talk about midterm blues, don't we? And we talked about the pressure on Boris Johnson, but there's also pressure on Keir Starmer to do well. I mean, if Labour aren't winning back hundreds of council seats at this time, you would have thought it's not looking great for the next general election. We all remember the mid-1990s, don't we, when Blair was sweeping councils up left and centre as a signal, as a sign of what was going to happen in '97. There's pressure on the leader of the opposition too.
Well, that's true to a certain extent, but as I say, Labour is defending quite a strong position to begin with, and to make significant gains in the thousands, for instance, is going to be very, very difficult, simply because of the configuration of seats that are up for grabs. But the way these things work generally is that the morning after local elections, every party will want to, and indeed will be able to, point to at least something that they will claim is a win, and the larger that thing is, the better that will be for the respective leader. The Lib Dems, for instance, will be very keen to start making inroads to Conservative councils in what's called the blue wall, these areas where they are perhaps at risk to the Lib Dems come a general election. And the Greens similarly will be hoping to make inroads. So all of the parties will be looking to gain positive stories, which they hope will lead to momentum. And I think while that's difficult for Labour to do in large numbers, it's certainly in a good position rather than Conservatives, which could potentially lose up to 1,000 councillors.